Live.
We're live.
From Toronto, Canada. Toronto, Canada. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to the Johnny I Pro Show with your host, Johnny Pro.
Hi guys, who's ready for Bret Hart?
Woo!
Daddy. Nice hat, look at that hat. Hi guys. Is he ready for Bret Hart tonight?
Oh yeah!
The whole crowd here is going all the way down right here. Woo! Wow! It's right here.
Best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
Hi guys, welcome guys. Got bars, look, a bunch of Bret Hart fans right here. Hi guys, love it. Black and pink everywhere.
Oh, let's go.
Oh, right here. Let them have it right here. Let them have it. Tell them. What are you excited for tonight?
BRET the Hitman Heart, man. Come on. Hitman.
Hi guys, welcome guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Guys, make some noise for Bret Hart. Come on. I'm excited, guys. We want Bret. We want Bret. We want Bret. We want Bret. Look at this. We want Bret. We want Bret. We want Bret. The line's all the way down, guys. Check this out. We're about to open the gates, guys, in like 10 minutes. Bret the Hitman Hart. We want Bret. We want Bret. We want Bret. We want Bret. We want Bret.
Dope milks. That's the one. That's the one.
We want Bret. We want Bret.
Hi, Bret. Remember me?
Right, doors are open. Let the madness begin.
That's some crazy ass shit outside. Bret Hart, man. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Alright, let's do this.
Johnny I Pro, Lord Fury, Judge and Jury, the man that controls the show.
Crazy. The crowd is. Oh, Tom and Tom. You have Tom and Tom.
Good.
The crowd is like, they're doing a whole documentary.
Johnny, you got Bret? I'm just gonna walk her to that.
Yeah, no problem. How's it right here? Traffic?
It wasn't bad, but a little bit.
It was electric. The lineup was electric. Well, I guess we'll relax for 5 minutes and then we'll get her.
And then go right out and do it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we said 6:30, didn't we?
Yeah.
So he's gonna mic you up right now.
I think I'm just gonna go with one shirt.
Perfect timing. Perfect.
Should have a really pretty girl doing this stuff. Budget cuts, right?
Best we could do is Johnny.
Right? A reasonable facsimile. Alright.
Further ado, welcome Bret the Hitman Hart. He'll hear the music. Does the DJ know?
Okay, I have no idea. I'll go tell him.
Please, yeah.
Okay, so Fury's gonna introduce him, cue the music.
Fury introduces me.
Okay.
I introduce him. And
Is he playing music for you?
I don't care what he plays. I'll make sure he doesn't play me Bret's music. He has to play him Bret's music.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
no.
wait until you come out and
And then
introduce Bret,
and then he plays
play.
Bret's music. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you're the eyes and ears, so you know.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
Which side, when we're facing the crowd, are you sitting on?
So I'm gonna be sitting on. So he's gonna be.
He's on the left
He's on the left.
hand
I'm
side.
on the right. I'm on
He's
the right.
facing the crowd.
I'm on the right.
No, if we're facing the
Oh, the
facing the
crowd.
stage?
Yes, left, right. Yes, yes.
you're
yes.
on the left hand side.
He's on the left hand side.
Yes.
Facing the stage. Okay,
Yes.
so. All right, I'll be behind the curtain, just behind you. There, we got guys in front.
So
I'll be out of
basically,
sight.
it's going to be on the side where he comes out.
Yeah.
Where he's going to sit.
We've got a good crew out there, but.
The lineup was outrageous. Young Street, red shirts. I told the thing was nuts.
Oh yeah, it's wild.
Like 2
Some guy
o'clock.
walking with a shirt on.
I got it here at 2 o'clock, thinking like it was all like calm, whatever. There's still some people like handing over shoes. Like here's some custom shoes. Like fans were out there for the early.
Yeah.
Yo, show them the video. Wow.
For sure.
A long time ago, you probably won't remember, but I was wondering if you've been in touch with Sweet Daddy.
So I'm going to go set up.
Do you but somebody give me the cue?
Yeah, I'll let you bring that up.
Sure, no problem.
Right, Bret, showtime, my brother. So happy to have you, bro.
Get out of the way.
Yo. Concert Hall, what's up? How y'all feeling out there? Are you ready to see the greatest wrestler? A Canadian god, a Canadian legend, a Canadian icon. Bret the Hitman Hart. No. You don't scream for the wrestling god like that. I said, are you ready to see Bret the Hitman Hart? What I say, when you sing "Oh Canada," if you don't have a picture of Bret Hart in your brain while you're singing it, you gotta be crazy. This show has been brought to you by the Toronto Collective. My man Heist, over there at the booth selling the merch. It's also brought to you by Supreme Kings Entertainment. Yours truly, Lord Thy God Fury and PJ Merciless. It is also brought to you by the one and only, the man with the million flows, the man who always talks at the right tempo, Johnny
Let's go, guys. Make some noise. Come on. Make some noise. Wow. Look at this, guys. Wow. Sold out. Louder. Let's go. Guys, sold out concert hall because of you guys right here and the love for Bret the Hitman Hart. Give it up one time. Now, where are my wrestling fans at? But most importantly, where are my Bret the Hitman Hart fans at? Now guys, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you're gonna see. And after this, the meet and greet, this is a star-studded event, guys. So are you guys ready? Without further ado, let me introduce to you the legend, the GOAT himself, Bret the Hitman Hart! Let's go, come on! Sir, welcome. You guys go louder if you want, come on! Now guys, I gotta say, we all know he's from Calgary, but this is home as well. Welcome to Toronto. Now I gotta say now, the last time we spoke was during the Canadian Walk of Fame. How was that getting inducted to the Canadian Walk of Fame?
It's different. It's different than wrestling. Like, you know, most of my accolades and awards came from wrestling, so it's one that's outside of wrestling.
You deserve it, buddy!
I'll tell you, Toronto's a big part of it.
Oh yes, for sure. Now I gotta say, growing up in a wrestling family, how was that?
Well, the wrestling side of it was okay. It was the 12 kids part that I never understood. Trust me, I don't know what my mom and dad were thinking when they had 12 kids.
They had a good time, that's for sure.
Well, there's definitely a pecking order.
I gotta say now, do you have any early dungeon stories that you can share with the fans?
Yeah, actually, my first memories that I can actually remember in my life are about wrestling. Like I can remember back in the 50s when you know, I guess when I was born, I was probably about 3, maybe even been 60 by then, I guess. But back in the 60s, I remember Killer Kowalski really was the scariest guy for me. I couldn't understand why a guy was called Killer. And he was actually a really nice man. He used to drink carrot juice all the time. And he was like, he didn't drink alcohol or anything like that. He was a really straight kind of guy. He was a big, tall, massive man. And he would go up to my mom and dad's house and he would drink carrot juice all the time. They would make it special for him, like blend all these carrots and make the carrot juice for him. But he was always really nice, and I can remember the wrestlers in those days back in the, I guess it would have been the early 60s. They would go up to my dad's house, and my dad used to make his own beer, which is funny, but he made his own beer, and then he would let all the wrestlers drink beer, and then they would go in the dungeon and shoot wrestle with each other for hours. And they'd be lifting weights. I can remember I'd go in there and all these wrestlers were squatting like really heavy weight, lifting weights and dumbbells and stuff. And it was just such a little tiny room. And then there'd be 2 or 3 guys wrestling on the mat. And they'd wrestle for hours. And then my dad would finally come down after they'd been there for a long time and drank a lot of beer. And then he would proceed to stretch them all one after another. And I would watch it and always kind of like, it kind of, you know, it made me think about wrestling and stuff, because it was like my dad was putting holes on them and taking them down. You know, I remember for years I used to think of my dad and I go, you know, he couldn't beat this guy and he couldn't beat that guy. And I can remember, I don't know how many years later, but I remember some wrestler telling me about my dad. He goes, "Your dad could take everybody." Like, and I was like, I don't think so. But as I got older, I started to realize what my dad was all about.
Exactly, well said. Now I got to say now, you started off as a ref in your dad's promotions. So and also after that, you also started off as a wrestler. Was it a couple years later? I believe you debuted it, or was it the same time?
Well, I started refereeing when I quit college. I went to college to go to film school, and I went to film school, and I got corralled onto being onto the wrestling team instead of the film department kind of thing. And there was only like a month left in the wrestling season back then, and I said, I can't get ready in a month for the championships and all that. They talked me into joining the team and filling in one of their weight classes that they didn't have somebody in. And I ended up winning the college championship that year. Well, I mean, I'll be honest, that was the most embarrassing performances. And I was so out of shape. After high school, all I did was drink beer with my buddies and stuff and watch hockey. And then it's like all of a sudden I'm fighting for my life wrestling guys. The guys that were way better shape had been training since like September or something. And I was like way out of shape although I was provincial champion in high school. So I did well, but I won the wrestling thing, and I quit school the same day that I won. And I was so mad at myself because my grades were all really bad, but I had a medal, which isn't what I went to school for. So I was like, I didn't tell my dad that I quit college, and I was actually going to regroup and go back and try film school the next semester, but I needed to make some more money to pay for my school. So they talked me into refereeing like one time. Because didn't have, my brother, I think it was running 2 shows, and my brother was in the other show. And so it was like, they talked me into it. And I knew that I had gotten a job with the city at that time, working in the landscaping department. It was pretty good money for my age anyway. And I would work all day, and then as soon as I got off work, I would drive to the gas station while the wrestlers would park their cars and leave. And I would go to some town, I think it was like Red Deer or Lethbridge or something. But, the truth is I didn't know much about wrestling. I watched it all my life, but I think by the time I was about 17 or 18, even maybe 16, I started to understand what it was, but no one ever explained it to me. became friendlier with the wrestlers and stuff. And then on that, I think it was Red Deer. I know it actually was Red Deer that I drove to, which is about 80 miles from Calgary. And they loaded me up in the van, and I remember it's like this, I drove almost all the way to Red Deer, and nobody said anything to me. And I said, what do I need to know to be a referee? I've never done it before. And they told me, he said, just referee like it's amateur wrestling. If somebody's shoulders on the mat, count them. And if they stay on the mat, count 3, you know. And if they lose, that's their fault. And so I applied to, I said, okay, and they kind of gave me a little bit of a quick school. I remember I learned more about pro wrestling in that 20 minutes drive as we got close to the building. I remember when I got there, I was like, so that's how it works. And it's like, I started refereeing, which was a really, really important way to understand wrestling, is to be a referee first, because then you learn all the things you need to know with and the wrestlers tell you stuff, like they say stuff to me, like back me up, and it's like, okay, you back them up and give them orders. And anyway, it was really educational to be a referee. That was a big part of my success of being a pro wrestler, was that I was a referee. And later on, I don't know, it was probably about 3 months later, I was riding to one of the towns, and there was one wrestler that said he was going to teach me how to be a pro wrestler. So I was like, okay. And he said, I'll be at the house tomorrow at 10 in the morning, and I'll take you. And I was like, okay. And I got dropped off and went home and whatever. And the next day, he never showed up. And it was like, okay. And I didn't blame him. It was too, you know, they only got so much time from me. And it's like, maybe a week later, I had 2 other wrestlers, 2 Japanese wrestlers, tell me that I was going to be bigger than my brothers size-wise, and that I should be the next guy that gets into the wrestling for my dad. And they really had big plans for me, kind of thing, talking to me in the van. And then we went through the same thing. I said, well, they said they'd come to the house the next day and train me. And I'm like, okay. And I went home, and I slept in. And they came in and woke me up about 10 in the morning. And I was like, the last thing I wanted to do was go and wrestle. Yeah, I was like, I kept stalling and stalling, but finally they got me down in the basement, and they taught me so well. Like the whole reason I'm here today is to those 2 Japanese wrestlers that taught me how to wrestle.
Oh my God. Now I gotta say now, who would have thought, starting as a ref to one of the greatest to ever do it? Give it up, guys, again. I gotta say now, you mentioned Tokyo there. Let's talk about your Japan days. You fought at the Tokyo Dome itself versus Tiger Mask. How was that?
It was great. I mean, he was a really special wrestler. He was a great guy and a really good wrestler, and I enjoyed wrestling him and working with him and knowing him. And he was the first guy to help me sort of establish what little foothold I had in Japan. I wouldn't pretend that I was a huge star in Japan, because I wasn't, but I was a good middle star, and I worked really hard. Japanese wrestling is different than everywhere else. It's like the Pro Wrestling Olympics. It's like they drop kick you as hard as they can in the face, and they body slam you as hard as they can, and it's like that's just how everyone wrestles. It's like nobody takes any shortcuts, and everything is very executed right. And but they got no, in my opinion anyway, Japanese wrestlers had no psychology. They didn't know anything. They didn't think much about endings. Endings were just happened most of the time, but they were really good technical wrestlers, which is why I think the 2 guys that trained me. So I fit well into Japan, and I did get better every time I went, in the sense that the first time I went, I was there for 7 weeks, and that was like the longest time I'd been anywhere. And it was like hand-to-hand combat every night. Like they wrestle for real in Japan. Like it's like like I said, when they body slam me, they body slam me as hard as they can. So it was hard work. I remember at the end of the tour when they paid you, it was like blood money. I felt like a UFC here. But I learned a lot, and I've always had a lot of respect for all the wrestlers over there, the guys that I worked with. Like I think my favorite Japanese wrestler of all time was Tatsumi Fujinami. He was the excellence of execution too. He was an incredible, talented and great wrestler. And Tony Onoki's another one. He was a fantastic wrestler and a really nice guy. He was kind of like the Japanese Elvis Presley of wrestling. But they had a really unique history, almost like baseball. But they had a really unique history in Japan with pro wrestling.
Amazing. Now I gotta ask, your debut will televise WWF 1984. You teamed up with Dynamite Kid. How's that?
I had just had knee surgery in July, and they told me 6 months. I couldn't do anything for 6 months. So it was like 5 weeks later. George Scott, who was Vince McMahon's right-hand man back then, was in Calgary negotiating the sale of Stampede Wrestling to WWF, and everything they came up and was very casual. Like, we want to take a look at you and Dynamite. We'll give you guys we just want you to fly you down and see how you wrestle with our guys and stuff like that. Just a tryout, nothing serious. And I said, I just had knee surgery. I can't do very much. He goes, don't worry about that. It's like 3-4 minutes. You don't even have to do anything, kind of thing. And it's like he really blew it off, and I was like, okay. So me and Dynamite flew all the way down to Brantford or Toronto here, and then we drove up to Brantford. And it might not have been Brantford, it might have been Hamilton even, but I remember they put us in a match with Mike Sharp and some other wrestlers. And I remember I hadn't wrestled and had a match of any kind since like April or something. My knee was that bad that, and I had to get surgery on it. Big surgery where they put the big Frankenstein stitches on your knee. Anyway, so I was pretty limited just on everything, my timing and just everything. I hadn't been in a ring in 4 or 5 months. We had that match. It was an okay match, but I remember they said, you guys got 3 minutes or something. I was like, 3 minutes? With Mike Sharp? 3 minutes? Like, how do a guy beat Mike Sharp in 3 minutes? And it was like, to be honest, working from my dad in Stampede Wrestling and/or in Japan, there's no such thing as a 3-minute match. Like, this doesn't happen. How do you beat someone in 3 minutes? Like, it's like you have to build. To me, you got to build a whole story and tell it. And it was like 3 minutes, and we had the match, and I didn't have a good match. I wouldn't say it was awful, but I remember at the very end of the match, I slammed the guy in the wrong spot in the ring, and Dynamite Kid he was standing on the second rope after, and he looked at me and he goes, "For fuck's sakes." And I looked at him and I was like, I've been off for a while. I had to go back over, and if you ever watch that match, I had to grab the guy by the legs and drag him all the way around. And then Dynamite jumped off, and he was mad. I think he even rolled his eyes again. And he told me the guy was too close for him to jump off. And I was like, there's nothing I can do about that now. That it's time to end it. And he was just, he did it all actually wasn't so bad, but I just know I didn't do very good. And when I was walking back to the dressing room, I was a little bit ahead of Dynamite Kid. And Vince McMahon was waiting for me behind the curtain. No, actually, I shouldn't say he was waiting for me because he wasn't. I remember walked right past him. He didn't even look at me, didn't say one word to me. And I remember I knew. I was like, I just failed my audition. And they don't realize, like, Vince McMahon doesn't know that I got a bad knee and that I can barely walk. And I remember Dynamite Kid came through the curtain about 10 seconds behind me. And it was like, oh, Dynamite, and he was just, Vince was all over Dynamite. He was in love with Dynamite Kid. And I was like,
how about me?
I knew right there that I was like, I think they don't think I'm a very good wrestler. And I remember I told George Scott when they asked me to go, I said, I don't want this to be an audition because I'm not ready yet. And he was like, don't worry about it. And I should have worried about it because that's how they judged me for the next year, is that I was so-so wrestler that they tried to find something to do with me. But it took me a long time to change that.
I gotta say now, guys, give it up right there for that story right there. Now, the last time we spoke that everybody just made headlines, you were telling me your favorite matches. Now, I'm going to go in order now. 1991 SummerSlam versus Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental title. Let's talk about that match right there.
Well, the backstory to the match with Kurt was that he had hurt his back really bad, and I think that's why they took the belt off him. His back was really bad, and then they told him that they made the decision that they were gonna change the belt at SummerSlam, and he was getting his back. I think at that time he was gonna get surgery on his back, but when he found out that it was me that he was gonna drop the belt to, he said, I will be there no matter what.
Perfect. And I gotta say now, 1992, this is a good one, guys. Wembley Stadium versus British the Bulldog.
That was one of the hardest matches I ever had. I had to do the thinking for both of us. Which is really hard to do, and the physical stuff. It's like, I remember picking up Davey for a body slam was like picking up a full refrigerator. Every time Davey did anything with me, I was like made myself like weightless, you know. And it worked, because the truth of the story is that I tried calling Davey Boy all summer, and he would never return my calls. Once I knew I was wrestling Davey, I started to think about the match, and I mean, that match is step for step, move for move, is all in my head. Everything in that match is what I envisioned. And in those days, I used to go to the tanning beds, and I would lie down in the tanning bed for 30 minutes, and I would just start the match in my head and watch the whole match. And it's funny, because today when I watch the match, I go, that's the match, the whole match. Every move, everything you see in that match was dreamed up or thought of in tanning beds. But I remember telling Davey, I go, Davey, I'm calling him, leave a message and stuff. I've got the greatest match that anyone's ever gonna see. It's gonna be fantastic. And you're winning, and it's gonna be fantastic. And he would never call me. I go, I need to talk to you about this match. And he wouldn't call me, and unfortunately for Davey at that time, he had a serious cocaine problem that arose from when he moved to Florida, and he ended up moving about 2 or 3 blocks from Jim Neidhart's house, which was probably a big mistake at the time. And the Jim was off and had some money from a lawsuit, and he was just blowing it on everything. And there was a serious cocaine problem developed over the summer. And Davey just did cocaine every day and every night for 60 days or so. And I'm calling him every day, and I have no idea about any of this. And when he got to England, I was like kind of mad at him. Like, I remember I saw him, I said, where have you been? Like, I've been calling you. What the hell, you know? And he was like, he just almost like broke down, not emotionally, but physically. He just said, I'm fucked. I'm fucked everything up. I'm not ready. I haven't lifted a weight in 2 months, and I haven't done anything. I don't think I can do the match. And I said, you have to do the match. And you have to do the match because this is going to be the greatest match of your career. And you have to do it, and you have to. And he's like, I can't. He kept saying the word, I'm fucked. And I remember I said, I will do everything. I will help you. I will try to pace things. I'll try to, you know. Anyway, we went out, and it was at about 3 minutes of the match. If I had the match on here watching it, I'd tell you the part where I'm asking him, I go, and he tells me, he goes, I'm fucked. I can't. He's about 3 minutes in the match, and he's like, I got nothing left in the tank, and I'm on empty right now, and I'm like, Oh, no, you're not. That's the whole match, is Davey's just, and I'm covering up for him because he's family, and I'm trying to protect him and give him the best match I can. And all credit to Davey, he did it all. Like he didn't think he could do it, but he did everything move for move, and we had such a great match. There's a lot of things in that match. Like when I think about it, like what do I remember most about SummerSlam '92 with Davey? And I think of
iconic match.
Where it was somewhere in that match he went for a suplex and he picked me up, and I think I knew that he was going to do it, but I wasn't prepared for it. But he dropped me on the turnbuckle strut. If you watch that and you think it hurt, it really hurt. Just luckily it didn't castrate me.
Injuries are real. Injuries are real.
I landed right on the bone, right on, I don't know what you call that, but right next to your ball sack. With all my weight, I'm not kidding you, like I was in so much pain. I remember, and then he suplexed me off the top, I think, from there. And it was just like, I remember, that match was brutal. Like I took some real, there was somewhere in that match I dove over the top rope and Davey forgot to catch me. And I had to catch him as I'm falling to the ground past him. I had to jerked him by the head and took him over in a headlock backwards. And I remember they had some special move, Space Needle. Ever Dave Meltzer wrote about it in his Observer sheet. He had some name for it called a Space Needle Japanese move that no one in North America had ever done it before. And I'm like, I'd like to see the Japanese guy that did it, because it was totally made up on the spot when Davey should have been like catching me like that. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff like that in the match that was a hard-earned match.
One of the best.
And I remember when I got done and went back to the dressing room, there was nobody there. Nobody in the dressing room, no one to say, hey, that was a pretty darn good match. But Vince McMahon, he told me that night, he said, that's the greatest match I've ever seen, and you were the greatest athlete. And
give it up, guys. Wow. Now, I got to say now, where are Owen Hart fans, guys? Now, WrestleMania 10 versus Owen. But besides that, how do you mentally prepare to face your brother? Now, I know if I face my brother, who knows? Like, how do you against family? Like, how does that happen?
Well, it's kind of fun to remember all those times with Owen. Because like when I got into wrestling, then I wrestled 6 years from my dad, and then I left Stampede Wrestling and went to WWF, and I had to start from the very bottom of WWF kind of thing, and I was doing my own thing. But Owen was just starting from my dad a little after I started wrestling at WWF. But Owen was really good. He was always a great wrestler, and the thing about Owen that I liked was that he didn't copy me, which would have been easy to do, or like that would have been a natural step for him to try to follow his brother Brett, just do everything like I did. But Owen was a high flyer, and he did all this different kind of stuff. So there was never any kind of competition between me and Owen. I always really respected how different he was than I was, and how good he was. He was really good. In fact, I think Owen was getting more credit for being the great wrestler than before I was, and which I never minded. I mean, I was always really close with my brother Owen, and I was really proud of him. And when they first came to me about doing the brother thing, they wanted my brother Bruce to do it, and they really leaned on me. Pat Patterson and Vince McMahon, it had to be my brother Bruce. He's the right one. He's the brother that. And I'm like, well, he's smaller than Owen. He just had knee surgery and he can't wrestle. And I don't want to say anything bad about my brother Bruce, but he was not the wrestler that Owen was. And I said, I actually told him flat out, I said, we'll not wrestle Bruce. That's not going to happen. I said, if I'm going to wrestle a brother, it's going to be my brother Owen. And then they were like, okay. I remember Pat Patterson didn't like it. He was like, Owen's not the guy. I don't know what his problem was with Owen, but Pat wasn't impressed with Owen very much. And Vince, I just remember Pat was like trying to keep pushing my brother Bruce, and then Vince was like, put his hand up like, and he was like, Owen would be fine, like Owen would work. And I was like, okay. And then we talked about it for a few minutes, and I said, well, before I even agree to do this, I'd like to run it by my parents first, which wasn't even true, but I just wanted a little more time. I said, let me think about it overnight, and I'll come back tomorrow and give you an answer. And so I immediately went out and pulled Owen aside and said, Owen, they want to do this thing. And I remember we talked about it, and he goes, Owen was, he was like stunned. He was like, wow, like that's a really heavy thought to take in for 1 second kind of thing. And I said, well, just think about it overnight, and then we'll talk tomorrow, and then we'll figure it out and decide. And I remember I made the decision overnight that I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of fighting my brother, and I didn't want to ever have, we had kids then, I think, and didn't want our kids thinking we hated each other and all that stuff. And then I just got there the next day and I said, I don't want to do it. And Owen's like, are you kidding me? I've been thinking about it all night. And it's like, you got to do it. And he went on, Owen sold me on doing it. And I was like, and I said to Owen, no, Owen, if you want to do it, we'll do it. And that was it. And I did tell Owen, I said, because you have to know WWF and Vince McMahon and all the backstage politics and games, mental games they play with you and stuff. And I told Owen, I said, can't do that shit with me and you. Like,
Love it.
Me and you answer to me and nobody else. And like if Vince, whatever they say or want us to do, you wait for me to give the nod. And if I don't agree with it, we don't do it. And so the rest of it is was just, that was the storyline they had with the brothers and all that Survivor Series. And the match itself, as we got closer to the match, it's like, truth is we never worked with each other, never wrestled each other, like never practiced with each other. A lot of Owen's moves, I'd never seen them before. And I missed all his Stampede Wrestling. I was on the road in WWF. I never got to see much of his work. And I knew he was good. I caught little pieces of his stuff, but as we got closer to the match, we did have, I think, one match somewhere in Wisconsin or something like that, whereas Owen and might have been Razor Ramon, funny enough. Or no, maybe it was 1, 2, 3 Kid. I can't remember. But I know it was 1, 2, 3 Kid and me, I guess, against Owen and Razor Ramon and in a tag match. And that was the only time we got to work, and which wasn't much. We did a couple of moves and did some spots and a couple of, it was like, you kind of wet our lips a little bit, but we didn't really like have a whole match together or anything. And I kept thinking about it like I always do. I was a guy that would start thinking about a match, like putting a match together, move for move and piece by piece, the beginning of the match, and what would be a good way to do this. And like I would put the whole match together in my head weeks before I actually wrestled whoever it was I was wrestling. But when I put the match together with Owen, I put in all his high flying moves, some of his really good stuff. I said, we'll fit that in, we'll fit this in, and fit that in. And we had this, in some ways it was maybe a better match than the one you watched. We had this beautiful, really, it brought out the best Owen's high flying moves and really, really good match. But I remember it's like we got it all locked in and it's all there. And then I remember thinking about it. And then the night before we left for New York to actually come have the match, I called him and I said, we got to meet up at Dad's house and we got to go in the dungeon and we got to put a different match together because this match is to babyface. You're trying to turn heel. And if we do this wrong, you're going to be a babyface at the end of it. You start doing all these moves and stuff, they're going to be chanting your name. And I said, my run as the top dog in the company is going to be...
Yeah, exactly.
This is going to backfire on both of us. You're going to be stuck as a babyface, and I'm going to be stuck as a heel, or turn myself heel. And I said, we got to come up with a whole different match. And I remember that's the match that you watched at WrestleMania 10. But we put in all the nasty stuff, like Owen's biting my fingers and bending my fingers back and cheap shotting me all the way through the match because we wanted to really establish Owen as a bad guy and a mean little brother. And,
Sure was. He sure was.
And that's what he did. And it was, you know, for our first match, that was the first time we really stepped in the ring with each other one-on-one. Not very many guys can go in the ring, never worked with each other, never had that experience. Like one match is all it takes to get an idea of how you work. But that was a pretty smooth, well-timed match for two guys that never worked with each other before.
It's one of the best matches for sure.
The best thing I'll say about that match is that, you know, the Japanese wrestlers in Japan, they invented the scorpion deathlock, the sharpshooter, same thing. Actually, the sharpshooter is slightly different than the scorpion in the sense that I put it on backwards. I always turned, I think, to the left, and Sting and everybody else would turn to the right. And it's like a small detail, but it was the way I put it on. And it's probably because I put it on wrong. But I remember when we put that match together, and it was like a small little thing, but I love it whenever I watch it back, is that I invented two ways to reverse it, like to reverse the sharpshooter. And there's just two spots, you'll see it if you ever watch the match back, but there's two times that I think Owen's putting it on me and I reversed it and I got him in the sharpshooter. And then we did it another way because we had two ways to do it. And I remember it was another way we did it. But anyway, when I watch it back, I go, that was ingenious. Like there's probably wrestlers in Japan, they wrestled for 40 years and never thought of a way to reverse it, you know. But.
Now, guys, give up that story right there. Come on. Now, I gotta say, when you think of the sharpshooter, besides the names you just said, everybody thinks of BRET the Hitman Hart, right? Like, we all give it to our siblings, whatever it may be, we let them feel the sharpshooter. Let's just say that. Now, I gotta say this now. Let's talk about the 60-minute Ironman match. First HBK. Oh, okay. First Let's talk about that match.
Not that great.
Well, actually, it was that great. That was a great match. Sean might have been. Sean's going to have his issues later on, but when he wrestled me in the Ironman match, he was in the best shape of his life. And he was, if anything, there's a good backstory to that match. Is that what really was happening is Vince was trying to replace me. He wanted a new champion. So that's why they cut me short, and Hogan got the title, like Yoko. I'm just trying to tell you a story.
There we go!
I agree with a lot of your sentiment. But really what was happening was they kept building guys up to take my spot, and then that guy would fail. That guy would fail or not do as well as I was doing, and they would go back to me again. Like it was always like I was the sure guy, so they'd stick it back on me. And that went from Hogan to Yoko to Kevin Nash, and then later on, and then it was Sean's turn, and they were going to build this thing all around Sean, but you know, I'm always a professional and a businessman, whatever they wanted to do. But they sent me, that year they worked me every single day from January to WrestleMania. And I was wrestling, I remember going, I'm wrestling Sean, and he's back home. He's got 3 months off because Owen did that angle where he kicked him in the head. And he just took a whole vacation. I mean, I wish they'd done that with me once in my life. Just go home and wait till we call you. So
Workhorse.
I'm on the road. I went to India. I remember we went all over the place. But I remember, but maybe 1 month before WrestleMania, I was in India and I was so sick. I remember sitting on the toilet and puking in the sink, and it was like both ways, and it was like. I'm like I remember coming out of the bathroom. I was like the day I got home from India. I was like sick as a dog, and I was so sick. And I remember going, "There's no freaking way I'm going to wrestle Shawn Michaels in an Ironman match in 4 weeks from now. Like there's no way to get ready. I'm wrestling Yokozuna. All the guys I was wrestling, Kevin Nash, Yokozuna, and it might have been Psycho Sid. But I remember they were all big guys, so there's no cardio. It's mostly just like I'm a basketball and they're gonna bounce me around the ring for. And I just remember there's no cardio. I'm not getting any cardio, but I'm getting the shit beat out of me every night. Or I'm getting body slammed from Kevin Nash, which is like you might as well jump off a building. It was really, I remember I was just so beat up, and I remember going, there's no way I can't deliver a good match. I'm too burned out. And then I realized that that's what it is. That's what they want. They want me to show up at WrestleMania, and they want Shawn to scrape me off the mat and then I knew, I said, they'll do it with the commentary. Oh, Bret Hart, he's looking old, he's tired, look how he's, and I just remember going, I'm not gonna let that happen.
Yeah. Love it.
So I went into a training mode with a friend of mine who was a trainer with a hockey team. And he put me on a training regimen that I started doing religiously every day. I would ride a stationary bike for an hour straight. And I would ride it, because I had bad knees, I couldn't run or jog it's hard to do cardio when you had bad knees like I did. It was like, what do you do for cardio? And especially when you're wrestling every night too. So he put me on a system where, I think it was in the beginning, it was 30 minutes. I would ride for 1 minute, slow. I would always warm up for 10 minutes, and then I would ride for 1 minute, regular or normal, and then the next minute I would ride as fast as I could for 1 whole minute. And then I'd take the next minute, I'd take a bit of a rest, and then I was like full blast for the next minute. I did that for 30 minutes, and then it built up to an hour. And I did it every day, even when I wrestled. On the road, I did it, and I got myself in shape. And I rested, and I don't know what I did, but I did everything right. And when I showed up for WrestleMania that weekend, Shawn had been off. He'd been off for the whole time, resting, running up the stadium steps, if you remember. And I was like, so he was in super shit. That was what the plan was. Vince is like, you got to get ready for this match so that I don't want you to fail. You have to get over. And you have to do it. The best way to do it is I've had Bret Hart, I've ground him into the dust on the road, like the worst road trips and long trips and stuff. And I just remember showing up in the dressing room and I was like super ready. And Shawn was already super ready. And so, like him or not, it was, and we didn't have any big issues so much at that time. It was just starting to become a problem with Shawn. But he showed up that day, and because I was the champion, I'm in charge. I'm the boss. So that match, when you watch it, it's not a Shawn Michaels match. That's a Bret Hart match.
Love it. Now, I got to say there, I see a couple of Toronto Maple Leaf jerseys in the crowd. You mentioned, just got to add this in here. You mentioned the hockey regime, like to get you back into and all that stuff. Are you a Calgary Flames fan or a Toronto Maple Leaf fan? Because I see you sometimes you're wearing both, right? And you obviously are part of the Hitman.
That's a good question, and I want to give you a half-assed answer, but I've really been waiting a long time for Toronto. Admittedly, I'm a little bit annoyed that it's taken this long.
I gotta say, it's okay. Our championship photos are in black and gray, so that's fine, I guess.
Well, maybe this is their year.
Exactly. Now, is there love for the Montreal Canadiens? Never mind. Next question. Next. That's it. All right. Now, back to the classic matches. Now, versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, that match.
What? I'll just say this: that the truth was, I always really got on really well with Steve Austin. We were always good friends. I always liked him. And he was actually a pretty funny guy and a fun guy to hang out. We had a lot of laughs together, and he had a good sense of humor. And I really liked Steve, and I could see that the workings of Shawn and Triple H back then. Even it's like, I'm gonna go to bat for Steve. And I could tell that they were grooming Shawn, and Steve was great, and he was coming up, and there was no stopping Steve Austin, and he would have been the great wrestler that he was without the match at WrestleMania 13. But the match at WrestleMania 13 was, in my opinion, was the greatest match ever. Yeah. And it's you know, I don't want to get too deep or whatever, but I mean, I was a wrestling fan as a kid, and I watched wrestling, and I remember things that made me pop, like things that, and I wasn't like any other fan, but I watched it. I was a really educated fan at 8 years old. I could tell you who was good and who wasn't, and I thought I was a technical. I liked my wrestling to look real, and I just had a good mind for wrestling. And when I did get into the business, and even in Stampede Wrestling with my dad, even my matches years ago with Dynamite Kid, they were really beautiful battles, with covered in blood. Like, it was always like, we got back to the dressing room sometimes, and it was like, wow, what a match. Like, that match, I wish someone had filmed it, and wish someone could have documented that and seen how good it was. And I wish today, even now, if you could watch some of the matches I had with Dynamite Kid and Stampede Wrestling, they'd blow your mind. They were so good, but there's no record of them. And anyway, the match with Steve, the I Quit match is such a handicap. Like, when you watch a wrestling match, you like the 1, 2, oh, the guy kicks out.
The excitement.
Take all those out. There's none of those in the match. And it's like, I remember sitting with Steve, and it's like, we showed up that day, and I was sick about the I Quit match because I hated them. I had the one with Bob Backlund, which was, oddly enough, was one of the worst matches I was ever put in. But I love Bob Backlund. It wasn't Bob's fault. It was the idea of the match that was bad, the I Quit. And I remember when they said, we're going to put you and Steve in an I Quit match, it's like, please don't put us in an I Quit match. We're limited to only submission holds, and there's how many submission holds? Maybe 20 in the world of wrestling, or roughly. I mean, there's a headlock, and there's a Boston Crab, and a figure 4, and a abdominal stretch, and like you know them all, and they're like, there's not that many, and they're not very interesting anymore. So an I Quit match is like the idea sucks. And me and Steve, we wrestled at Survivor Series and had a really great match. And when that match was over, it was like, and Steve was rising. He was a rising star. And it's like, I remember it's kind of like, I'll see you maybe next summer at SummerSlam. That'll be they'll build it up for the big rematch by then. And we'll take a break from each other for a long break. And that suited Steve well enough. Like, me and Steve talked a lot in those days. And I just know that Vince, he had the SummerSlam match that I had with what was my point? Anyway, the match with Steve was really going to be hard to put together with the submissions and all that. And so I just remember when they threw me against Steve, that's what I was going to say, is that when I came back, it was already planned in August when they said, we're going to bring you back and you work with Steve and all that. You're going to win the title back from Shawn at WrestleMania that year. I was going to win the title back and turn heel. And that was the idea I presented to them in the summertime. And of course, remember when Shawn lost his smile and gave the belt back and all that. And I agreed with you. I was it totally sucked. So Vince tells me, he goes, The belt's off now. We're going to put the belt on Undertaker or Sid. I can't remember who it was. They were in another match, and because we're just going to throw you with Steve again. And I was like, really? Like so quick? We just fought, like, and I beat him. So it's not really anything, you know. So I wasn't happy about wrestling Steve, and I don't think Steve was happy about wrestling me, even though we liked each other. We were just a little, I remember when we showed up in Chicago, and we're both kind of like, I quit match. Like, what are we going to do? And we went out, sat in the ring, and really it was, he sat on the chair, and I sat on the ring apron, and we just talked. There was nobody out there, it was just him and me, and I said, these I quit matches suck. And we really were kind of at a blank. And then we just started talking through the match and walking through. Like when you dream up this stuff, you know, it's weird. But I remember we stood in the middle of the ring talking to each other, and we did that stare down, which we did in the match. And I remember I said, this is like a school fight. You know, it's like a school fight. I remember two guys that had a fight in school, and it was like a heel against a baby face. And there's two other guys that I knew, the two biggest guys at my school when I was grade 8, I think. And it was like they were the two biggest guys in the school, and one was the new guy, and he was a heel, and the big tough guy in the school that everyone knew was the baby face.
Really?
And it was like they were going to fight after school on Friday. Or it's like that day. It was just, and I remember it's like it got promoted just like pro wrestling is. And I remember like saying to myself that day, it's going to be a sellout crowd tonight. And it was packed. Like every kid in school came to watch this fight.
I gotta ask, who took it though? Who won?
Well, that's the thing is that the heel beat the babyface. And actually, I'd say the babyface beat the heel. Like, anyway, at the end of it, the one kid, the guy that started the whole thing and picked the fight, got beat by the other guy. Who actually had just a big guy that was minding his own business. He was more like Kevin Nash or something. But anyway, he beat the shit out of this guy, and that guy tapped out or gave up at the end. But the next day, I remember my Monday morning when I went to school, everybody hated the new guy that won the fight, and everyone felt so sorry for the big bully that started it, that he was the babyface. And I remember it's like, when I stared at Steve Austin that day in the ring, I said, I see this like a school fight. And we started to piece together move for move till we rolled under the ropes and fought up through the crowd. And you know, there's so many things about that match that I remember. Maybe as I get older, I remember all the ones that hurt. But I remember that when Steve Austin took me and threw me into the hockey boards with, my God, I don't know what I was thinking. I remember telling him, I said, you can throw me into the boards, I'll protect myself. That was so painful. And you watch it, and it's like, I think because it's dark and you can't really see it, but that's just before we go up the stairs. But he threw me into those hockey boards, and I can appreciate all those hockey players that have pads that hit those things. But for me, I had nothing.
You had nothing.
And I got pancaked pretty good there. And then going up the stairs with Steve Austin, I remember he picked me up for a pile driver. I'm going, what are you doing? You're pile driving down these cement stairs. And he gave me in wrestling, it's called giving you the Iggy. He gave me the sort of pinched me on I think it was my hip or something. He pinched me to let me know that he wanted me to backdrop him on the stairs. I would never do that to a guy, but he wanted me to do it, so he offered to do it better than me being pile drived on the stairs. So I obliged and backdropped him on the stairs. And it just tells you what a dedicated guy and hard worker Steve Austin was back then. He was trying his hardest. But going back to the match, and then we got back to the ring and started fighting. But there were so many things in that match that were just such great storytelling. Like the bell. I always loved the part with the bell. So I remember it's like I grabbed the bell and then I put it on the ring apron, planted on the apron, and then I changed my mind. I don't want a bell. I want a chair. And I picked up one chair and it's like, no, I don't want this one. I want this one. And there's no difference between the chairs, I don't think. But anyway, it distracted everyone from the bell. It's like, oh, he's going to use a chair. Okay, so then it's like, and then we went with the chair and did stuff. But everyone forgot about the bell. Like, we have the whole match and the bell was on the apron. And it was like a key piece to the match. And when you think up this stuff, it's like everyone in the building is going, why doesn't somebody move that frickin' bell? Don't let anybody move that bell, because we need the bell. And anyway, it was just such a beautiful match. Like, and what I always say about that match is that best thing about that match is that no animals were harmed in the making of that movie. And other than the hockey boards and maybe the backdrop on the cement, but those were tokens. But you know, that match was such an easy, fun match. I had so much fun doing it. And I remember when it was over, it was like, that was like one of the easiest matches I've ever had, and it was so much fun. It was really fun to do that match. And you know, there's things in that match that I remember that stand out today, which I put up on display to Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair or any of these guys that think they were better than me. They weren't, and you know, I'm just gonna say, there's things in that match, like I don't know how many times everybody saw the Ric Flair and every wrestler do the ball shot thing where they come up through your legs. If you ever had anyone do that to you, you knew that it doesn't really hurt very much. And so it's kind of like, it's passe, it's over. That move, you never see me doing anything like that. And we were talking about that with Steve in the ring, and I said, the way you do a ball shot, like, you know, a real ball shot is, I got to stand really close to you, like pretty close to you. Like, we're punching each other, just like you do in the corner, so I could pace it how far I would need to be away from Steve. But if I'm close enough to him, you know, close enough that he could actually knee me in the groin and probably hurt me pretty bad in a real fight. But he's close enough to me that when he kicks me, he's going to kick me and then his foot's going to kick me in the butt. Like, it's going to hit me on the other side before it hits my groin. It's all hard to explain, I guess, especially if you're a woman out there. But anyway, I always love it, especially because Steve was already bleeding by then and all that. And it's like, I'm beating this guy, and it was such the match that was playing with everyone's emotions. Like, 1 minute with me, cheering me. I remember when I walked out to the ring, they loved me. And Steve was the only one that knew that I was turning heel the next day. That was like a big secret. And Vince told Steve to let him know, to explain how the story should go, is that I'm going to turn heel the next night on Monday Night Raw. So when we had that match, I remember I wanted to keep Steve. Like, it really does play with your emotions, because when you give somebody a kick in the groin like that, that's pretty cheap. And you know, it was just, I beat him pretty good in the corner, and I remember he did it just perfect, like the way I told him to. I said, just kick me right in the ass as hard as you can. But when you watch it and how I sell it and how I fall backwards, and it was like, when you watch it, it's like, that had to hurt. Of course, it didn't hurt at all. But I remember to me, it's like, that's beautiful wrestling. Like, that's really well done. And you never see it, anyone ever do it, and no other wrestlers do it. No one uses it or ever tried it. But if you ever watch a ball shot, I said the one ball shot you'll remember for the rest of your lives is that one. And that's what I love about that match, and even the blood in that match. You know, I think Steve might have a different memory of it, but and I respect Steve's memories too. But the way I remember it is, I asked Steve, I said, you know what would really make this match is if there was some blood. And as I remember it, he said, I've never done it before. but I'll sure as hell try. I'll do it. I'll make it happen. And I was like, I stopped him. I said, Steve, it's WrestleMania. You can't practice at WrestleMania. If you've never done it before, don't try and do it like at WrestleMania. And you probably, if you're thinking about it in your head and you're going, I can do it. Go home and cut a razor blade and cut your head and see how easy it is. It's a very difficult thing to do, but it's I'm an artist, and I told Steve Austin, I looked him right in the eye. I said, Steve, because the first rule I ever learned in wrestling, one of the first rules was to never ever let anyone ever cut you with a razor blade, ever. If you do, just whatever you do, do it yourself. And anytime that anyone ever let somebody else do it to him was a nightmare. Like it was like just blood everywhere, like really bad, like stitch. I remember Dynamite Kid cut Davey Boy Smith's head one time. Davey let him do it, and I remember Dynamite cut his head with a razor blade, stuck it in, and then Davey went, ah, like that. And it went all the way around his head. It took about, I don't know, 60 or 70 stitches. I carried Davey. If you read my book, it's in there, but I carried him to the hospital, like an emergency. They never even finished the match or anything. And I remember that I took him in there. But anyway, I was like, don't ever let anyone cut you. Even to Davey, I remember it was like, and that was the cardinal rule. But with Steve that day, I said, Steve, I know I told him that I know that nobody ever lets you cut somebody. That's the first rule almost every wrestler knows. And I said, but Steve, trust me. Let me do it. And I remember Steve thought about it for a couple of seconds, and maybe my memory is that he maybe realized he didn't think he could do it live on, like for WrestleMania, it would be a lot of pressure. And he said, okay, I'll trust you. I said, trust me. You can trust me. And so when we had that match, for me anyway, and I'm the only one that did it this way to my knowledge, that most guys, when they make a razor blade and then they tape it up, they stick it on tape it to their wrist, and then while the match is on, you gotta pull it out of your wrist tape. But I've had that happen to where A, it falls out, or B, it gets stuck in your wrist tape and you can't get it off, and then it's like you gotta abort and change the direction. Anyway, so I learned to carry it in my mouth. You stick it inside your mouth and you put it right here under your bottom lip. And honestly, it doesn't cut anything. I don't know why, because your gums are kind of soft. But I always thought when I did it, it's like, it's gonna cut my gums, but it never did, or my lip. It just sat in there, and I would have the whole match, and then when it was time to use it, I would just spit it out. So I carried it in my mouth. Even when you watch me do an interview, go into the ring, I've got it sitting right here. You can't see it or anything. But
a true artist.
It's funny, when I'm back in those days, I never ever thought I'd get applauded in a room like this. But anyway, so I told Steve, because you could get in a lot of trouble. In fact, we maybe could have got fired for it, but I had just signed I had a contract that I don't think they could fire me, but I could get a pretty serious slap on the head for it. And I told Steve that too. I said, you're getting this big push and you're going to be this big star. We can all feel, everyone knows it. It's coming. Like, this could really, if they think you did it, like, it could be a big problem. So I said, we got to make it look real, like do this for real. And he agreed, and it was agreed that it would be a secret and we would never tell anybody. But I told Steve, I said, Steve, the hard part is to carry it in your mouth for the whole match. Like, I'll do it because you're punching me, and you got to carry this thing in your mouth when you're being body slammed or whatever, turnbuckled, and like all the things you're doing. Anyway, it's like there's a lot of work involved in carrying on the charade of having a razor in your mouth. And I told Steve, I said, I said, somewhere in the match, just any time in the match before the blood, you can change your mind. If you change your mind, I'll accept that and agree that you didn't want to do it and decided that maybe we didn't need it or it'd be better without it, or maybe it would protect your job better or whatever. Anyway, so it's like, you just got to tell me. Say, I'll pass, and I'm not going to do it. If you tell me we're not going to do it, it's done. I'm not going to do it. But I said, once I get it in my hands, there's no turning back. Because I've just carried this razor blade in my mouth for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and I'm going to have to cut somebody. So I love it when you watch the match back, because I think he's got me in a rear chin lock, and we're in the middle of the ring, and I asked him, I said, are we good or not? Are we going to do it or not? And he's like, okay, let's do it. And it was like, and then I gave him a couple of elbows and I hit the ropes, and he sidestepped and threw me out on the floor, if you remember it. And I fell on the floor and I spit it out and I got it in my hands. And then he jumped out on the floor and he's picking me up to run me into and I'm going to reverse him. But I remember he goes, maybe we better not. And so I didn't say anything, except for I reversed him. And as we're reversing, I yelled in his ear as I'm pushing him off. I said, too late. And so he stumbled and fell into the railing and hit his head on the railing, or supposedly, hit his head there, or he bumped into the railing to set it up. And it was just beautiful in the sense I walked over, and the funny thing is that I always love about that match is that it's at the Rosemont in Chicago. And I grabbed Steve's head and I put him in a rear chin lock, and I'm looking at the whole building, the whole crowd. Every fan is looking at us. And I cut Steve's head with a razor blade in a second. I mean, it was so fast. So even when I watch it back, I go, that was pretty good, fast. And Vince McMahon was about a foot away, looking right here, and he didn't know anything about it. And we were trying to protect, Steve from getting in trouble or me getting in trouble. But it's like everybody watched, they're all watching, and nobody saw it. There's nobody that ever said, "Oh, I watched him cut Steve's head right there. I could see it. I could see the razor blade." Anyway, it was just so perfectly done. And the little cut on Steve's head is about the size of a dime, but it's right to the bone. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
I don't want to do a big expose on razor blades, but the truth is, guys like Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes or a lot of the wrestlers, when they cut their heads, they would do these. They would put it on their thumb. Like some guys would tape it to their thumb, and they just go like this over and over. Hulk Hogan, that's all they do is they put these cat scratches all over their heads, and that's why they got all these marked up heads that they got, But I was like, it hurts a little more, but you go a little deeper. But I don't have scars all over my head like everybody else. It just looked more real. And, I pride myself on that as an artist. That match, it was such artistically, from a pro wrestling standpoint, is just an exercise in beauty. It's everything in it's perfectly done, and the blood made that match. It changes everything in the match, and the tempo of the match, and which I knew it would. It's like when I think about that match, it's like everything, and that's another Bret Hart match. There's no here's my idea and here's your idea. It's me sitting down going, this is what we're doing, with almost all my opponents. And that's why my Iron Man match was on the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart co-match. I would say, the truth about, not that I want to switch topics or anything, but when I first won the title, and probably leading up to that of my career, you had to make it kind of 50-50. You had to sit down with the guy and go, okay, what do you want to do? like me and Kurt. Kurt was a great wrestler, but it was like 50-50. Like Kurt's got ideas, and I'm gonna do this, and how about this? And then you piece together your match, and it's a co-match. Like it's 50-50. Undertaker was always 50-50 because you could never tell Undertaker what to do because I don't know what to tell Frankenstein what to do. So it's like, you do the scary stuff and I'll work around it, you know. But you know, it's all about psychology and stuff like that, wrestling psychology. But I always took a lot of pride in working with guys and giving them their best matches. But when I always let them, like, I always incorporated their ideas into my story. Like, okay, everyone I ever worked with, from the Killer Bees or tag team matches or whatever I was doing, it's like, it's a 50-50 match. The Rougeau Brothers, Heart Foundation, it's the Rougeaus coming up with half their stuff and we mix together and come up with a match. But, and that's how it always worked. But when I won the title from Ric Flair, who's a good friend of mine today, I don't want to bash anybody or anything, but it's like, when I worked with Rick, it was always a Ric Flair match. Routine guy. Yeah, it was a routine. He was a routine guy, but he did the same match every night. And I remember it's like if I said to Rick that, how about let's do a front turnbuckle. Give me a front turnbuckle. They look, it'll make you look like makes you look good. It's a good move to sell the story. But it's like, he wouldn't want any moves of mine. Like, we don't need that because he's got the whole match. Ric Flair can only wrestle Ric Flair style. And so after I won the title, I had a match with the Ric Flair, and I wasn't actually happy with our matches. They weren't as good as I wanted them to be. And I remember I called Vince up, and he actually kind of lectured me and kind of gave me shit and said, "You're the champion. You're in charge. There's nobody higher than you. You are the #1 guy. You're the champion, and you are in charge of the match." And I never realized, like, you're right, I am the champion. And I kind of took it serious after that. And then I started putting my ideas in with Rick. And then, like, once I became champion, after I worked with Rick, it's like everybody I worked with, whether it was Owen or Kevin Nash or whoever, it's like, sit down and I'm going to tell you what we're doing. And I don't need any help from you. Like, not really. I was nice about it, but it's like, you might give me an idea and I'll try to incorporate it into the story, but I'm going to tell you what we're doing. I'm in charge. And it was hard to even Andre. And, the truth is, Andre was a big fan of mine. He would have done anything I told him to do. But anyway, that's how it was. When I used to put my matches together, I was in charge. Like, this is what we're doing, and we're not going off the road with any other ideas. And that's why I think my matches stand out today, is because most guys listened to me and just did what I told them to do.
And I gotta say now, 2-time Hall of Famer, 2-time. Now, how is that get inducted 2 times? Let him sip his water, guys, you know.
That was Jim Neidhart's fault. No, I was, I'm glad that we got to do I got it twice. I don't know how many times. Well, Sean must have it 500 times.
Whoever's a Sean fan tonight, exit.
But I'm glad that they inducted the Heart Foundation into the Hall of Fame. It's really important to give Jim Neidhart his due, and Jim Neidhart was the biggest believer in the Heart Foundation. And, he was the perfect partner for me. He did a lot of the heavy lifting in our matches, like when we first teamed up, I remember we'd get to the TV tapings, like somewhere like Brantford or something like that, and it's like you have these whatever you call them, job guys or just guys that are part-timers, or some of them you always ask them. I remember in the beginning you'd ask them, how many matches have you had, Dave? And it's like, or no, that was the question. You always say, how many years you been wrestling? Oh, it's like 3 years. I've been wrestling 3 years. It's like, okay. So then they lay out the whole match and you go in the ring with the guy and he's a disaster. You can't even hit the ropes. You throw over the ropes, you don't know he's going to come back. And then you come back and go, I said, I thought you were wrestling for 3 years. And he goes, I only had 3 matches in 3 years. And it's like, that kind of thing. So it's like they were hit and miss. You don't know if they're any good or not. And we would show up in the first beginning days of like the Hart Foundation, when I was tagged up with Jim. I can remember they'd bring in 2 job guys. One guy'd be about 3-4 feet tall or whatever, and it's like, and the other guy's like 6'5" and 400 pounds or something. It's like, you're wrestling the Hart Foundation. And it's like, I remember I'd look at Jim and go, you got the big guy. But it was kind of like that with Jim. He could wrestle the big guys, like everyone from Andre to, all the big guys, the heavy guys. And it made the Hart Foundation really versatile in the sense that we could wrestle Demolition, and we could wrestle the Rockers, and we could wrestle, anybody, any team. Even Andre and Haku, we could wrestle them, and Jim could make it believable to do stuff with Andre and like knock Andre off and give Andre a bump or something, And that's what I always loved about Jim, is like he filled a lot of the blanks that I couldn't. And back in those early days, you don't want to be struggling in a TV match with some guy that can't, he's a little, like some big guy that's just gonna be throwing a guy like me around when it's supposed to be, you're supposed to enhance me, not the other way around. And I remember a lot of times I was so happy that I had Jim as a partner, because he was a really solid guy a lot of times I was like, you got him. And he was like, okay, I got him. And Jim would deal with it. Because Jim was unbudgeable. Like, he was like a rhinoceros for real. And so what was the question?
Oh, hey, this could be my show, but this is they're here for you.
I just want to get back on point.
That's just basically, how was it get inducted 2-time Hall of Famer?
Oh, we're a long way from there.
Oh, yeah.
But I never, I appreciate awards like that. I can't say I ever thought that I didn't do my career based on that someday I'd get an award like the Hall of Fame. But to me, it's like, you want to think it means something, but sometimes the Hall of Fame, they give them I remember they gave them out to a lot of guys where you go, wasn't that great? But in saying that, the fact that they did give me and Jim, they put us in the Hall of Fame, and that I put me in there twice, gives it some credibility.
Exactly. Now I gotta say, guys, as well, I vouch for Owen Hart to be in the Hall of Fame as well. I think it'll be about damn time, right? Now, like I said, now we're gonna get into this segment where like the fans love this. Now, if there could be a dream match for you, past or present, anybody, who would it be?
I get asked this question all the time. I love answering it because the truth is the answer changes every day. Initially I always thought the best match that I didn't get to have was with Kurt Angle.
Wow.
I would love to work with Kurt, and he wanted to work with me, but I couldn't do it. I had my concussion injury. Thank you, Bill Goldberg.
Let him have it.
Maybe a little bit more. Just a little bit.
A little bit more. He said louder. He wants it louder. Let him answer. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, dream match. Yeah. So he would have been the first guy that I really wanted to work with that I missed. Like when my career ended, that's a match that I didn't get to have that I would have had for sure. I would have eventually had a match with Kurt Angle somewhere. Yeah. And that was a big loss for me. And so then over the years, you think about different guys. I would really, I know it sounds funny, but I would love to have worked with Brock Lesnar.
Wow.
It depends on which, you know, I would have assumed in my head that I would have been a babyface against Brock Lesnar. And it would have been an uphill struggle kind of match, which it would have been really fun to work with him. So I always, contrary to Bill Goldberg, Brock Lesnar is actually a really skilled and a really good professional wrestler. He's the opposite of Goldberg. So I would love to have worked with him. I would love to have worked with Daniel Bryan.
Yes.
I would love to have worked with CM Punk.
That's it.
But I think today my answer to you is the one guy, if I could go back and wrestle one guy, it'd be Rey Mysterio.
Wow.
Only because I never wrestled anybody like Rey Mysterio. I didn't get to wrestle Rey. And I really wanted to. I remember when I went to WCW, I even like, I'll wrestle Rey Mysterio. It's like Eric Bischoff. I remember going to Eric Bischoff and saying, how about Rey Mysterio? How about Booker T? How about this guy? How about that guy? And he was always like, geez, you can't work with him right now because he's working with so-and-so. But it was always a made-up excuse on the spot, like, oh. And it's just too bad. Actually, a guy that I would like to have worked with, only to maybe have given him the best match of his career, that it never happened, was Hogan.
Whoa, Hogan.
If I wrestled Hulk Hogan in 1990, what was it, 94, whatever, 93, if I'd wrestled Hulk Hogan at that time, it would have been the best match of his career. It would have been, actually he would have proved to everybody somehow, through my ability, that he actually could wrestle. But you know, the truth is, this is just my opinion, but the truth is Hulk Hogan was afraid to work with me because he knew that the fans would take to me and he would turn heel, no matter how it happened. And that's what it was. He would never wrestle me ever, and it was never going to happen because he was afraid to step in the ring with me. And not because I had hurt him or that I was tougher than him or anything like that, but just that his value would go down after the match. Like 10 minutes into the match, everybody would chant my name, Hitman, Hitman, and the whole thing would fade real fast. Hitman, and that's what he was afraid of.
This is where you started?
Fuck Hulk Hogan! Fuck Hulk Hogan! Fuck! Hey, check in! Check out!
Let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to argue with any of that.
I love. Now we're winding down. Now, if you could pick for us, you're included in this. Your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. Who would it be for you?
Well, you know, someone criticized me. I think I saw this like that I put myself on the Mount Rushmore.
Yes, of course.
I'll spare you that. I'll take myself off. But
no, you're in there. You're in there.
But there would be no Mount Rushmore without my head on there. But If I could put my 5 favorite guys on there,
Taker. Chris Benoit.
I would put. Again, this is one that changes all the time. Like it just changed. Like whatever. Sometimes you forget guys, but I would put Mr. Perfect. I'd put my brother Owen. And then it's a hard one. There's so many guys that could also fit on there. But actually, I would put HBK up there. You can say what you want about Sean, but he was a great wrestler, and so he would belong up there. And is that how many on there? You got 4 heads, or you got 5?
You can pick as many as you want. We have all night.
No, I'm just saying, how many heads is there on Mount Rushmore? You got Washington, Lincoln. Is it 4?
4.
5? Okay, so number 5 would be Abdullah the Butcher.
I love it. Love it. Now, last question I got to say. When it's all said and done, what do you want the fans to remember Bret the Hitman Hart as?
He was the best.
I would say, I really would want to be remembered as being a guy that worked really hard to entertain the fans and give them the best matches possible. I think I want to be remembered for maybe being the one wrestler that made wrestling appear to be real. And to take into account that, to the best of my knowledge anyway, I've never injured in a serious way, any wrestler that I ever stepped in the ring with. And I think, I think if you look at my career over a period of time, you can see that there's a lot of things that I created, things that I did that nobody ever did before. From even the front turnbuckle. You see everybody try today. Watch them try, and they dig. Some of them take. Even Owen used to take a pretty good front turnbuckle, but nobody takes a front turnbuckle like Bret Hart. But I think I also would want to be remembered or appreciated for being able to work so many different styles. Like I could wrestle anybody. I could wrestle the big guys. I could wrestle the little guys. I could wrestle. That's why it would have been really a fun experience to wrestle Rey Mysterio, because I never had a lucha libre wrestler match because I would have toned it down. I always mix. It would have been half lucha libre and with Rey doing all the high flying, not me. And but I would have loved working with Rey. He was when I see how. I was a big fan of Rey, even in WCW when I was there, and he was every bit a one-of-a-kind wrestler like Andre the Giant. There's no wrestler ever. Even Tiger Mask in Japan, who was considered the greatest high flyer kind of thing, and kind of invented it almost. I don't think he compares to Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio's raised the bar so much higher and really opened the door for so many Mexican and Latin wrestlers. I love Rey Mysterio. I love his work, and I wish I could have worked with him just one time to show everybody that blend of North American style wrestling with the Mexican wrestling. It's a milkshake that we never got to drink.
I gotta say, when anybody ever mentions wrestling, they mention Bret the Hitman Hart. I gotta say, sir, thank you so much. Now, if there's a message to the fans here, look at this, sold out concert hall. You did this. If there's a message before we sign out to the fans, let them have it.
I'm so grateful for everybody coming out tonight, and I got so many great memories about Toronto. Going back to even my good old days as Buddy the Heartthrob. I don't know how anybody remember Buddy the Heartthrob. But my first memories of coming to Toronto and landing it, because when I got booked to Toronto for Maple Leaf Wrestling, and I'm glad they're making a comeback. But I wrestled in Edmonton and drove all the way back to Calgary and got up in the morning. I think I had an hour's sleep, and then I flew to Toronto. And I got to Toronto, and I got a taxi to the Maple Leaf Gardens. And they wouldn't let me in because they'd never heard of me. And they had to go get Jack Tunney, I think, and he came out and said, yeah, he's a wrestler, let him in. They let me in, and I went to the dressing room. Had a couple of minutes to get ready for a match, and went out and had a match. And it was just, Toronto was like a big thing for me, wrestling in Maple Leaf Gardens, and just being in Toronto was like, I was like the first heart to break into the Ontario market and all that. It was a big milestone for me. Might not have seemed like it much at the time, but it was always, when I came here, and eventually when WWF bought out Maple Leaf or took over, it was, I remember I was like, please don't call me Buddy the Heartthrob. They said, no, we're gonna call you Bret Hart. Let you be Bret Hart. And I was grateful for that. But wrestling in Maple Leaf Gardens was always so much fun. There's some of these halls of these buildings that, like Madison Square Garden, the Boston Garden, the LA arena, was the Coliseum they had in LA. They were buildings, even Calgary, they were all buildings where they wrestled for the last 70 or 80 years. It wasn't just, that's where wrestling evolved. This is where it all came from, these big arenas. And when I wrestled in Toronto, it was like so much history. And it was like, this is where Sweet Daddy Seeky's wrestled.
Legends.
I just always, it was a big honor to be there and to be part of that, even in those early days. And I remember every time I came to Toronto, it was like a second home to me.
Do me a favor, you got all our votes. You want to run for mayor, perhaps?
I'm going to go for Prime Minister.
There you go, Prime Minister, here we go. Now, Bret, I gotta say, it was an absolute honor. As a hero of mine, my idol, thank you so much. And guys, meet and greet happens right after this. Give it up for Bret the Hitman Hart! Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
When we first tagged up, me and Jim Neidhart, we had the black tights we had black tights, we had red tights with a black stripe. We tried different things. We didn't want to go black and yellow because it's not very flat. It wasn't a good color, but
Pittsburgh.
It was really hard to find a good. We started out, the Heart Foundation had light blue. We had black with a blue stripe that looked pretty cool. We liked that. Then I had black with a silver stripe, but we didn't want to go silver with black. It just didn't look right. But the black with silver was good. And then we even had black with gold stripe. And then we had a Saturday Night Main Event. One of the first ones on Saturday night. It was a big Saturday Night Live show. We were fighting the Killer Bees. And it was like, at that time, it was like, this is going to be a bigger audience watching Saturday Night Main Event.
It's a bigger show
than any wrestling show ever. Like, there's more people going to watch me on Saturday Night Live in those days. Like, this is the biggest audience I've ever performed in front of.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this is really big. It's going to be all over North America. And so I said, we got to get some new gear. And we called the lady up that makes our gear, and she was like, I don't have any real new colors or anything. And black with a green stripe wouldn't look very good. And it's like, and she said, out of nowhere, she goes, I got a really nice hot pink. And I remember I went to Jim Neidhart in the hotel room. I said, Jim, you got a really hot pink. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
and that's like in the
all right, so I kiboshed that.
Really.
And then it's like, so we couldn't come up with one. I said, well, we'll think about it and we'll call you in a few days. And anyway, it got closer. We got closer and closer until it was like, well, this is the the only day we can order. We have to order it today or not have it in time. And we called her up, and she goes, "I got this really hot pink." And I'm like, looked at Jim, and he goes, he gave me the nod. He goes, "I like." He changed his mind, and he goes, "Go with the pink." And so then I said, "Okay, we'll go with the pink." And then we wore the pink. It was pink with black. We had black with the pink, which looked pretty good for a while, and that was the start of it. And then we went the opposite, the pink with the black stripe, and that was on the Saturday Night Live with the Killer Bees.
Wow. Brett, you're gonna die. That's fantastic. You signed that.
I'm shaking so bad.
You put the Bret the Hitman Heart, all that heart. The almighty Canadian ambassador of wrestling.
My wife
That's an expensive picture, woman.
I want that on my wall.
The best there was, and the best there ever will be. Whatever.
I should just check the back. You're the reason me and my dad have a good relationship.
The industry would not be anything without you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Marcus, let's switch. I'm gonna take camera, you move stuff. I'm gonna be quick with the camera. I'll be good with the camera. Sharon's got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I can't, it's hard to see, but.
He's been writing for 4 or 5
Yeah, I know.
years.
It's an honor.
Have to confiscate it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to.
Oh, pleasure.
Bret Hart is the best there is, the best there was, and trust me, the best there ever will be.
Guns for the Hitman. Woo! Guns for Bret. My dads are better.